That's why I like to prioritize and segment to really know like what can only be done by me and where do I need others and who do I need. Obviously, that's also related to projects. Who do you need to coordinate with? Is there still input required or can you go and complete it yourself? And obviously, Jamie, it's really been helping me focusing my brain and my brain capacity on things where I really need to be super creative. What works for me very well is having a very clear agenda. What's the achievement? What's the goal? So what do we need in order to take the next step? So it's kind of like trying to project into the future a little.
We really decided to focus on one prior at the beginning of the week because there is no priorities, there's only priority. Hello everyone, I'm Benedict, co-founder and CEO of Jamie. And at Jamie, we're dedicated to understanding how top performers operate, enhance their productivity and scale companies. That's why I'm thrilled to have Patrick Prokesch on the podcast. Patrick was a senior director at i5 Invest, a strategic venture capital firm with offices in Vienna and San Francisco. After that, he has helped with scaling Meister as the chief commercial officer, a SaaS company that is active in the productivity space and known for products such as MindMeister. Over the past years, he has supported several other leading startups with their go-to-market strategy, such as Canva and Nuki. Now, he's building his own company in the AI marketing space. Today, we'll dive deep into Patrick's insights on productivity, his experiences in scaling companies, and the tools he employs to drive rapid growth. Patrick, thank you for joining me.
Thanks a lot, Benedict. Pleasure having you.
Is there anything that I did not mention in your quick intro? I'm sure there's a lot, but what would you like to add?
Thanks. No, I think that was a nice front house kick. We're currently building in a marketing AI space for growth marketers in D2C brands, larger e-commerce shops, as well as marketplaces and consumer apps. That's me right now.
Cool. Yeah, so I'm sure then personal productivity has been a relevant topic for you, not only now with building your own startup, but also over the last couple of years. And what I'm curious about is, do you have like one, let's call it get shit done ritual, or do you have a go-to system to start your day?
That's a good question. I mean, I obviously love coffee, but I drink only like 2 a day or so. One in the morning and the second one in the afternoon. That gets me going. Ideally earlier in the day, so it wears off and you can sleep very nicely. To be honest, like I think sports is a great vehicle for me. So I switched to morning sports about 2 to 3 years ago. So I try to, wake up early and get my sport done, which helps me to feel, much more calm after a good workout. Many times that's also with friends together, which is super nice. So you also have a little bit of a sport and social routine. Yeah, I think like back then on the desk for work, it's really task lists and also prioritizing them for the most important things. Usually like what needs completion during the day, who do you need in terms of input, and what needs to be done by myself. And if I need to do a few things or it can only be done by myself, I like to block things in my calendar for the day, but also even like a few days out in the week that I know like I can get the deadline done and also feel calm still, while working on the task.
Sounds pretty good. I'm also definitely a big fan of time blocking. What I'm curious about, do you start your day by looking at like a blank page, or do you have a to-do list, for example, or maybe a to-do app where you just add all the points and then you review it on a continuous basis and it maybe piles up from time to time? At least that's how I know it for me personally.
No, that's for sure the same thing here. I haven't really found a perfect way of having a blank sheet in the morning, so everything is already done the day before. That usually stacks up. That's why I like to prioritize and segment to really know like what can only be done by me and where do I need others and who do I need. And so I'd like to make those categories for me. And then obviously that's also related to projects. So it's like project management and task management, which I do see inherently different to one another. It's really who do you need to coordinate with? Is there still input required or can you go and complete it yourself? And so I think, that's the best way of going about it for me right now. It obviously changes. So I think that's also the productivity space. Here and there, you try out new things, then somebody else suggests something and you want to try it out for yourself. And if it works and if it sticks, For me, lists, segmentation, and prioritization, and that's been working for me personally very well.
Cool. Yeah, and I mean, you just mentioned that it changes, and I know your work has also changed a lot over the last, let's say, 10 years from being on the investment side and doing some different work from what you're doing now, being a founder, and also in between doing several advisory roles and helping other companies scale. Have you actually ditched any productivity hacks or habits while going out your career?
Something that I ditched, but not consciously. It's more like what I have done to prevent it. I found that I was stacking up a habit of killing my lunch break, because like more and more meetings came in. Some people needed something like real quick. I was like leading multiple high performing teams. At the end, more than 70 to 90 people. I think in the end it was in those departments that I led or co-led. And then being responsible for a whole larger team as well, I see things coming in from all sides. And I think in the beginning, I didn't really fend them off very well. I didn't build like the firewalls around those like focus times when you need to complete your stuff, or even, lunch or the morning routine. And so I skipped that because I thought, okay, it's more needed and more important that I get stuff done and, help everyone out there. But then I needed to help myself. And so I started to build firewalls around it. And that habit sort of, prevented all the other bad habits that came in. It's again, the time blocking thing, Benedict, you also mentioned in the beginning.
How do you actually, about time blocking, how do you do it? Do you like time block specific tasks in your calendar, or do you just allocate like 3 hours for focused work, for example, 3 hours for, let's say, admin work? Or do you time block these specific tasks actually?
Sometimes even those specific tasks, meaning that, I try to assign a certain amount of time to a certain amount of time, like task or project. And I do it usually either in the calendar, or I do it like, in my task list or so on that I look at. And, but usually in the calendar works best, because then, meetings cannot fly in. I use, cal.com or Calendly as other people use it. And so people can, freely book my meetings. And also there I have, build those firewalls that I've been just mentioning, where there's a few hours where there's no calls that can come in. So I can get my stuff done, especially before the weekend, or before I want to head out at night. So.
Yeah, no, it's also, I feel like for me, it gives me a lot of peace of mind to actually have it in the calendar already and to know there's time allocated for it. So I just get it out of my head. Exactly. You already mentioned the to-do list and also a calendar. What else is in your daily tech stack? So are there any productivity tools or any tools in general, maybe even underrated tools, which you swear by and where you say, okay, those really make a difference for me?
I think in my usual tech stack, there's the obvious. I think everyone works with, like a calendar tool. I opened that like 1,000 times. So I think that if you have that well organized, it's amazing. I have my Gmail filtered, meaning that I have tags that I assign to each of the emails, but it's very simple. It's basically something that like needs action, and it's a tag in red. Then there's a waiting reply, which is, when I've sent something out and there's something should come back, but it also allows me to, or sort of pinches me on sending a follow-up if I need to have an automatic follow-up, sort of like notification of me like needing to follow up. I have everything organized in folders. And then there's a third tag that I like, it's a no actions tag that is gray. Yeah, that goes into an archive and then it's done, So this thing, then obviously it's the, cal.com or Calendly, like your scheduling, whatever you prefer, is amazing. Arc for a browser. I have started to adopt it a few months ago, and it's really, really nice because usually the tools that I work with have a sidebar, like a lane where everything's organized. So why isn't the browser, right? So this is the biggest sort of change for me that made it easier to have like multiple tabs, not essentially opened, but pinned in a way that I can like fast access. And for me, I don't know, it just works better as if it is left rather than on the top in a horizontal format, or in folders that then come out vertically. So this for me works very well. Also, again, I love folders. I'm a bit of a nerd there, and tagging and like putting things away. So that's stuff that I use.
Cool.
And obviously Jamie, I mean, not to mention it.
How can you forget about this one?
That's right. No, for me that's a lifesaver. I mean, I love it. It's really been helping me focusing my brain and my brain capacity on things where I really need to be super creative, and meeting notes, taking them synchronously right away in the call, and then taking those notes and trying to put them in a shape and order so other people can understand it is something that I have relieved my brain of doing, which is a very nice thing throughout and for me during the day. So I've become more productive through it for sure. Or any other, helpers on the AI side, obviously, that helps structure your data in a nice form. So Jamie does that without me telling it. So it's a really cool thing.
Cool. Well, thank you for sharing. And then we already have a nice customer testimonial also in this podcast.
Nice.
Thank you for,
sure.
for sharing this. One thing which I'm curious about, you mentioned calendar is like a central part of your workday. It's the same for me. And I think I've tried, I don't know, probably 15 plus different calendar apps and solutions. Then for me, it was personally always coming back to Google Calendar. I'm curious, is there any calendar tool you use?
No, Google Calendar is fine for me for now. Again, I have it ordered in colors. So I have multiple calendars, and they have different colors and shapes. But this works just fine for me. Notion is my brain. WhatsApp is now a little bit mixed between work, and I'm sure you have made the same observation, which is totally fine for me at this stage.
Yeah, I agree. WhatsApp has also become pretty important part of my tech stack for work as well. And I honestly, I don't mind. I quite enjoy it because at the end of the day, I just walk through it and see what needs attention and needs a response, kind of work myself towards inbox zero there as well.
That's what it is. This is where this like email tagging helped me a lot because it's all shortcutted. So it's like giving tags to certain emails with like 1 for being the action needed, 2 for being this awaiting response, 3 for no action, and then I automatically archiving them. So this has been great to go towards the inbox 0, which obviously is a hard thing to do, but I'm trying my best to achieve it. And WhatsApp has taken away a lot of this composing, and it's more social and it's chilled. But yeah, it's worth mentioning because it's part of the tech stack for sure.
Yeah, cool. Thank you for sharing some insights on that. And I'm especially curious also about how you organize your emails. So maybe I will ask you on a separate note about that again.
Sure, I can show you.
You already mentioned meetings and using Jamie for that. But how do you actually structure your meetings? Or, I mean, over the last couple of years, there's been a shift towards more asynchronous communication and also maybe cutting the meeting time in general a little bit shorter than it might have been, also with no like travels, of course, nowadays being connected to that. How do you make sure that your meetings are actually effective and in the end not like a time waste?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I think this is an ever-evolving topic for me. And what works for me very well is having a very clear agenda. And I like to also in the morning, as you asked before, like what is your get shit done or like early morning routine? I like to look at the meetings that I have for the week or for the next days, and obviously also for the day. And again, I like to look like, is this meeting am I the only person from our end, from the company that we're building, or do I need to have my technical co-founder, or is there anybody else from like, marketing or sales or go-to-market needs to join the call? And if so, I'd like to align on it. What is our common goal for the meeting? So what is our outcome that we try to achieve by all means, together with the customer, for example, or whoever is in the call as a representative, and then having an agenda that leads to that. So this is how I like to think. Also for internal meetings. So what's the achievement? What's the goal? So what do we need in order to take the next step? So it's kind of like trying to project into the future a little. So I come from finance originally, and then made my way towards like other disciplines, especially like go-to-market and so on. So I'm a rather data-loving, obsessed person in that way. And usually how you build financial models, for example, is like you look at historical data and then you try to make predictions about the future with it. That's also one part of the things that we're currently building. But there's like tons of data to analyze, which is super, super fun. So just to make that analogy is like you try to look at, what do I need after the meeting? Like what will be follow-ups? When is the starting date of that project, for example, or of that customer relationship starting? And like, how can this meeting or how can this be essential of it? And if the answer is, I don't know, or there's none, like then, the warning light comes up, and then you really need to think, how can you make it more productive, or, those things. Yeah. So agenda, goals, trying to project the future a little helps.
Yeah, interesting point. And I feel like with teams scaling and organizations getting bigger, actually, in terms of headcount, it probably becomes more and more difficult to run meetings efficiently, because you also sometimes think, okay, maybe this person could add some value as well. And maybe for this person, it would be interesting to hear what's being discussed. So it kind of can quickly like turn into a little bit of chaos. And I mean, you've been working with different hypergrowth companies like Meister, i5, Nuki, Canva, and now your own company. So how do you actually make sure that you scale without creating this chaos? Not only for meetings, but in general also.
Again, I think setting firewalls and filters for, for chaos, I think it's important to think about that and really sit down. Like, how do you want to, your month or quarter to go down? Like, what do you want to achieve and how do you like to get there? I think it makes sense to think about it before you plunge in head first, And so you wouldn't do it for yourself if you're jumping into a lake. So why should you do it with work? So that's one of the thoughts that I had. And then another one is also like very clear ownership. So thinking about, what are the goals that you would like to achieve for the quarter, for the year, whatever your measure might be, or for the day or for the week. And then really think about like, who's owning it? Like, who is that one person that owns that task, that project, that anything? And then from that ownership, like, who needs to be consulted, who needs to be informed, who's responsible of like contributing to it. So there's a framework called RACI, RACI, that's been super helpful. It's interesting. It's very easy to comprehend. It's like, it takes you 5 seconds and then you know what it is, and everybody's been working with it all the time. It's just, it puts some labels on it. It's no rocket science. It's more or less just a framework to dissect or, unwire a few of those relationships that are needed in order to complete a task or complete a project. And so it helps to label, and it also helps that there's like less misalignment and so on. So that's one thing, which is like very clear ownership for things. It's been helping me. And that ownership, obviously, also you tie it not only to tasks or projects, you tie them to quantitative measures like KPIs or metrics that you'd like to achieve for your company, for your team, or whatever. And then everything follows down a tree, sort of. There's high-level metrics that you want to look at, and then from there, what are the contributing metrics? And it's really important to understand like what is the main metric, and then how do you get there? And it's a fun task too, and it's helping you a little bit to unwire that complexity.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely see that. Also, like I think the ownership and accountability that comes with it is tremendously important. When looking now, I mean, you're now growing your own team or your own startup.
Yeah, man.
Um, how I mean, you mentioned KPIs and OKRs,
Yeah.
but now you can kind of combine all the experience that you've gathered over the last couple of years, and now building your own company. How do you actually work within your team now? Like, do you have a weekly kickoff? Do you have like some async check-in? Do you review KPIs on a weekly basis? How does it work for you?
Yeah, it's a good one. Listen, I'm trying to take all that experience and put it into form. There's certainly things that really helped. You know, going through stuff and failing and like running against the wall and like not trying to make it work and dissecting it and trying to kind of like evolve from there. It really helps. It's fantastic for sure.
Mm.
But then again, when you're in a new team, new company, new environment, and so on, you can only take a certain amount with you and apply it. There's always creativity that is involved in order to kind of like restructure and think. But how we work is usually we have a weekly for sure. And we have a weekly on the founder level and we have a weekly for the team. That comes together on a Monday, where the first 15-20 minutes is kind of like a kickoff for the week where everyone is there. And then it's kind of like a stand up and off you go. And, how was the weekend and what we want to achieve together. And it's a nice way of like bringing people together, especially when you have a remote team too, or partly remote. Usually that weekly that I have or that we have in like multiple teams, we do organize, start the meeting with a Notion page or whatever tool you would like to use where you write things down. That is obviously structured in multiple forms and ways, but I'm talking about the founder level right now where, you have customers, product, and ops, which are the three bigger categories, I would say. And then, or how we organize it to kind of like have only a few. And then we build it up from Monday to Friday. And Friday is like where we go through everything and go through the metrics and where we are like on a weekly perspective and also on a quarterly perspective of what we would like to achieve. And that's a nice blueprint for the Monday again, and then already draft sort of the one for the Monday and the kickoff. That's been working well. I know other teams who do different stuff and trying to kind of like have a weekly meeting on Tuesdays. I had this for many years in the morning where everyone comes together. So the Monday, everyone has the Monday and can get their stuff done and then comes into the Tuesday already prepared. And sort of this represents this like more team kickoff for the week. But it really depends. But I believe in weeklies for sure. And ideally you also have like stand-ups for your team and work with your team. And it's good to have, relationships and understand, build. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. We do exactly the same thing pretty much with the
Cool.
weeklies. For a time, we haven't had the same accountability that you described, where we really didn't look back on a Friday, for example, and said, okay, what did we actually get done? So I think everyone at some point, we got a little bit lost in doing stuff, but maybe not working on the right things. This is something we've like proactively changed, I think, a little bit more than a year ago, where we really decided to focus on one prior at the beginning of the week, and everyone only has one priority because there is no priorities, there's only priority. And I think this is something that helped us a lot in moving towards the right direction.
Amazing. How do you define priority for you guys?
So what's important to us is that everyone comes up with their own. Like there's nothing like decided top down or anything, but everyone comes up with their own priority and needs to check in with themselves on a Monday morning or maybe Sunday evening already. I think most of the people do it on Monday morning and decide, okay, what's really the most important thing that I can get done this week? And it could be that this is a task maybe that only takes 2 days. And then it's done. But then you can set a new priority. But not having like too many things on the agenda where you maybe have 5 goals for the week. You achieve at the end of the week, you achieve 4 of them. But the most important one maybe that gets you actually the furthest, you didn't achieve. And then when you look at it from the outside or from the leadership perspective, you see, okay, 4 out of 5 goals achieved sounds good, right? But this is not the case because the focus and the intention wasn't the right one.
Yeah, amazing. I love the sort of like responsibility tied independentness of it, like everyone's their own boss in a way, right? So of course you have hierarchy in a company and stuff and in a team and whatnot, and somebody's the owner and needs to get it done and other people are contributing, and so but we're all helping each other in order to get from A to B sort of. And I think sort of like that ownership is not given to you. It's like you give it to yourself and you try to, do your best in order to get there. And it's also cool, like choosing your own priorities. I agree. Also for a team, because like once you achieve it, your own set priority and your metrics that you put there and you get there, it's an incredible, dopamine rush. And it's so cool to see that like in fruition and see the product life, for example. So yeah, I agree. It's a really cool way of going about it.
Yeah. Something we needed to also learn throughout the time.
Of course.
You mentioned that you are into data, and also mentioned when you gave the example of financial models where you look at historic data. How do you actually now, and of course, when building a new company, a lot is about not having data and doing something for the first time. So how do you actually, when you look at your decision making, how do you weigh like data, for example, or intuition when making a decision? And was there maybe a tough decision that you needed to make recently that you could share?
Sure. I think it's always the answer is it's a mixture, but there shouldn't be one without the other, I guess. So, and you can only like derive from data what you can see in there, but like bigger decisions, you might also need to make like out of intuition, out of your gut feeling, out of your feeling that, everything is data basically, but some things also you need to take a shot at it. And you need to be sort of confident about you going about that shot, right? So that's the priority, right? Again, here. So you wanna go from A to B, and you need to trust yourself that you make the right decisions of getting there. Of course, if data is leading you on that path and is giving you like a solid foundation of sort of like making that choice, I think that's fantastic. Sometimes, of course, you don't have data, or you don't have enough data to make a decision, and then you just need to call the shots, and you need to do it. Otherwise, if you don't do it, something really bad would happen in personal and also in company life. So of course you need to do it, but you should try and aim to gather as much data as you can to sort of like help you on that decision making. There will never be full data. There will never be everything. For some things, probably. We try, and this is one thing that we have on our slides as well, or like that we show to new employees or new team members coming, and also investors and whatnot, is we're going after data availability as well, right? So we want to make decisions more clear and more data driven. Where specifically, and we're going after an area with like our marketing AI. We're going about areas where there hasn't been much data before, and also currently is not, but you can compile the data and you can make it available for to inform your decisions much better. And decisions there in that area where we currently are, those decisions are basically money and revenue. So budget and times conversion rate equals revenue. So those decisions that you make there are potentially worth tons of money. Yeah, that concludes it. There's no perfect and concise answer for this. Sometimes you just really need to try to trust your gut. Maybe one thing that comes to mind really quickly is when I have something that I need where I need to base my decision on intuition. I like to take my partner in crime, for that specific project or task, and then we think about it together and we make this decision, and then we get there. So I try to have supporters on the way for sure.
Yeah. Oh, that resonates a lot with me. I think this is super important. And I mean, also, even if it's only one data point, then maybe from someone else, it is a data point, and they have gotten the knowledge maybe also from several other data points. So I think it's super, super, super valuable. Yeah. Maybe 2 last questions,
Sure.
rapid fire questions, so short answers. What's the worst productivity advice you've ever heard?
Sort of like when you come into a new role, interview everyone is great, but then be sort of that white knight that comes in and solves everything. It's not related perfectly to productivity, but that's the worst advice that I've received, is that you essentially, if you may be a leader, that you are responsible for everything that contributes to the goal, and everyone else is just a contributor. I think that is absolutely wrong, and I think it's a very much of a team effort, and multiple people going about things and like trying to find their own path in order to get there. It's your responsibility of like making everyone get there in a way, and also for you. But yeah, that's one of those things that kind of like didn't resonate back then. I tried it out, and that didn't really work very well for me.
That would have been my question, if you tried it or if you directly neglected it. But
sometimes you can, of course, directly neglect it if it is completely off your way, for sure. But I'm rather a person. I like to try things out. See if they feel right, if they stick, and maybe you uncover stuff when you pull the curtains. You never know. If there's something that's cool for you. I try to not reject ideas or things like super fast. So that's sort of like one of the virtues that I set for myself.
Cool. Thank you for sharing this. Then last question: if you could only use 3 apps for the rest of your career, and I know you already mentioned a couple, what would they be?
Okay, 3 apps.
And you do not need to include Jamie there.
But Jamie could be there, and you have a solid foundation there for sure. I would say I like to track what I do also in sports. I'm a former athlete, so in that way, I like to the cool ways of finding more data about you and about yourself, and trying to resonate with how you feel. I think that's something. So that's Whoop for me, and that works very well. I think, but if it is helpful for you in the future, I don't know if you only have 3 apps, but it's a cool thing of maintaining good health. I think that if that would be one app, I'd like to have a little helper there for sure for the health and the sport part. Calendar, I think without a calendar, it's pretty rough and it's pretty hard. And if I had a third one, it would be like an Excel, like ideally AI conversational thing like ChatGPT that can calculate but can put stuff into form and shape and structure. Because I think calculation is just something that's so important. Also for you, you can do things in the head, but sometimes you need a little more complex stuff, and then shouldn't overestimate yourself that you can do it with your brain power. So yeah, those would be 3 areas I would say.
Nice, very holistic recommendations actually. So it's very nice, and also including like the health aspect. I'm Team Hour personally, so not yet converted to Whoop, but maybe at some point, so we can share our stats there.
Let's do it anytime.
Then thank you so much already for taking the time. Is there any place where people can follow your work, follow you, connect with you? What's the best way?
Yeah, sure. I think the best way is LinkedIn, actually, because I'm going to become more and more active also as we are going towards launch, and we're currently building together with our amazing design partners. These are like larger brands that committed themselves to working with us, and the other way around, and building the product and developing it. And we're heading towards being more active and sharing and doing more there. I pulled my heads out on the creator side a little bit because it was we need to push things forward, but I'm gonna get more active over the next couple of weeks and months. We're gonna be sharing our work. Also, the team will be, and what we can do in order to create value. So if you would like to join or connect and message, then LinkedIn is a great way to do it.
Cool. Then not adding your WhatsApp in the show notes, but your LinkedIn.
I mean, if you want to, fair enough. Go ahead. I'm fine.
No, I think I'm gonna spare you from that. Cool. One last question that came up: is there a launch date already?
There's no launch date fixed, but in Q2 we're gonna do soft launches together with our partners and customers now. So there's stuff that will come out and leak out. Also from our side, as we want to be like more open, more sharing about like what have we been working on, and we're also super proud and to be able to share more. So I hope as soon as possible, to be honest.
Excited to see that and follow your journey. So thank you so much for taking the time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I loved it. Talk to you soon.
Cool. See you soon.
Bye.